Dutch Allison JK here. So I'm going to do something that's a little bit going against my edge here, modeling that for you, hence me saying it out loud. My staff has repeatedly been asking me to do a video on examples of how I'm a pioneer. And I feel like, you know, if you're a pioneer, you don't really call yourself a pioneer. It came to me from someone else calling me a pioneer years ago, and many people have since then. And so I remember when I was over in Asia teaching at an international school and being an administrator, I dropped that and came back because my mother had gotten diagnosed with a brain tumor. And I had already been working with energy medicine at that point for about 15 years. And so I came back and used energy medicine, and then the holistic health and wellness training that I had and the nutritional or an herbal training that I had. And I combined the energy medicine work with that to help her erase what had been considered a very serious, you have only so many months to live diagnosis, to eventually going to the doctors with my mom and dad, and the doctor looking at the MRI and saying, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. You're working miracles, because it was gone. And I remember, and I don't normally talk about this, hardly ever. It's not something that many people know who have been following me for years. I like to keep some things private. Yeah, I am out there so much, but I do like to have some sense of a private life, as I'm sure many of you can relate to. But the part of it that's a pioneer really is when I was doing the work with the second energy medicine modality. I have training in 5 that I then combined with my background in yoga and meditation with what I have come to call and coin the phrase applied mindfulness. So I combine energy medicine with applied mindfulness into a vibrational upgrade system, which I've created. So I remember from what I knew at that point, working within my mother's brain where the tumor had sat, the damaged cells around it. And up to that point, the understanding was that any brain damage is permanent. And I remember using this second energy medicine modality I learned, it's Tibetan, I remember being guided to ask, I'm putting that in quotes because of special techniques that are involved in doing that ask, the cells surrounding the brain tumor that had gotten damaged to the healthy cells next to that to take over the tasks. And within a year and a half, it's not usually that quick, I'm usually about 10 years out in front of the masses, but within a year and a half, science finally came up with the term neuroplasticity. Now, many of you are used to that being applied from the meditation background, where if we work with our consciousness and our thoughts, the mind and brain are actually plastic. Now, that's not radical anymore because we have advanced so much in our understanding of we're no longer in a backdrop that's Newtonian physics, where everything's solid and real and concrete sequential, but it's a quantum physics backdrop where there's quirks and sudden leaps and jumps, and it's a lot more vibrational, a lot less stable than we may have been used to. And so that's just one example. Another example is, I don't know how many of you know of the Home and Gardens TV show, International House Hunting. I was doing that before that ever was a show when I was an expat, and I wanted to come out of the provided housing as a part of our contract for the teachers because I wanted to have further immersion with the traditional Chinese living downtown in the city I was in using my stipend. So I was going on these flats hunting with the Chinese administrator responsible for helping us expat teachers to translate as I looked at these flats. So that's another example. Another one is I've been a vegetarian since '93. Another one is when I came back the first 2 years or 3 years from Asia in the States in local health food stores, I was giving workshops on using superfoods and tonic herbs from both the Ayurvedic system, which I have training in, and the traditional Chinese medical system with its tonic herbalism, which I have training in, which have certain flavors. I was blending them and making things like what tasted like a chai latte or a mocha latte. And this, one of the health foods, both of the health food stores, one of them had no superfood section, no tonic herbs section, and the other one had minimal superfood section, no tonic herb section. And by now, and I asked them to start ordering this stuff, and by now their sections are huge. So those are just minimal examples But I do know that when my consciousness focuses on something, it's typically like buying organic produce before it was trendy. I used to have conversations with the guy in the local market here, regular market, not a health food store market, because I have been buying organic food since I was a freshman in college, increasingly, like going to those wooden floor co-ops where before there were any Whole Foods, people would pool together their money to cooperatively buy organic produce. And so you had a lot of bulk bins, you had like wooden floors, and there were co-ops. And so why am I saying that? Because I've seen like where my consciousness focuses, it then becomes and hits the masses about 10 years later. And so since I've come back with the mission in 2010 from the decade in Asia, studying subtle energy and consciousness and how it works, with the mission of, man, we'd have so much more thriving in the West if we understood the science and valued the worthiness and the worthwhileness of understanding how our conscious and subtle energy system works. And I'm seeing so many more people talk about it now. And I'm seeing so many more people like, and I don't mean to say I'm the only one talking about it. I don't mean to say that there weren't baby boomers in front of this ex-gen girl that were already forging the path, like Bruce Lipton, who was on my radio show and who I love. So credit where credit is due. But it's such a pattern that in my team, my staff knows this about me. So that's why they're asking me to do this video. That is against my edge, because I don't tend to talk about myself in this way. I will give my bio as needed during interviews, but not some of the personal stuff I've talked about. So the bottom line is, I just launched a spring immersion. Here's an example. And I was talking about joy. I was talking about clearing out where you're still identifying with old, worn out parts of your identity, old habits, clearing out the back of the house consciousness, as I've come to call the unconscious and subconscious, so that you can then rebirth into a higher version of yourself. And I launched it at a time when there was the Ukrainian war had kind of just begun, I think the end of the first week. And there was a lot of mayhem and a lot of heaviness, and people couldn't resonate with the joy. And so it was interesting to see how many people and who signed up for it. So what I know is that I talk about stuff before it happens. It's part of having what one of my nicknames is these hawk eyes, this intuition that I have. And I stand under the stars every night and I ask, what can I perceive to help guide us through these times? So it's intentional after realizing I am this way. And so if you want to be on the cutting edge, if you want to be ahead of the curve, if you want to be ahead of not having to be reactive, but instead much more in your creative power, meaning are you in reaction to life or are you in creation of life with your choices? Then this is where you'd want to be. I have a signature program, Magic, Manifestation, and Money Flow, and the changes are brilliant. And I don't hear them typically happening anywhere else. I know you may have taken a lot of classes, been in a lot of programs, but one of the things that I heard somebody say is, I can think of two people right off the top of my head recently who have said that. Other people have said who've gone through the program, I knew about there being something beyond the mind from the LOA, but I didn't know how to work it. You got my system so that I was successfully working it, Dr. Allison, and understanding how. So there's just real transformation here, and that's it. And it's so available right now on our planet. It is so available in 2022. This is a turning point year in the 2012 to 2032 window. So I invite you to come play. And feel free to subscribe or like this video or both, and have a fun day. Namaste. Bye.